are, ladies and gentlemen. Another exciting episode of the Scouser and the Scot.
So today we've got someone, well, one person who's been stalking me for absolutely ages, and I've actually had to get a police warrant out for his arrest. And Bob, I've also got Bob, who's a really good friend of the band. So first, let me introduce you to Sid Ryder, Inner Demon Media with Bob Bones. And please, will you stop ringing me at all hours, Sid? It's getting worrying, mate. It really is. I hope you're doing well.
It's becoming a habit. It's becoming a habit.
I think I fucking blocked him.
I need to seek counseling. Is what I really need to do.
Well, how the hell are you both doing? It's long. We've been wanting to get you guys on the show for a while.
I'm feeling badly prepared because I can see King Voodoo on every screen apart from mine.
Yeah, well, to be perfectly honest, so you should be embarrassed, mate. You should be sharing my. You should be wearing the colours, like, you know what I mean.
I should be. The wife's upstairs doing a course in we room where all we t-shirts are. Otherwise, you know.
If your wife is wearing your shirt, that's just as good, mate.
That's it.
There you go.
That's it.
I'll take that. I'm happy with that. So let's start some questions at you guys for a change, where instead of you asking the questions, it's up to us to ask the questions back.
It's a strange situation not being the one.
It is, mate. No pressure at all, but happy days. So can you tell us both how you both got started in music? What got you hooked into music when you was young?
Bob, you go ahead first.
Do you want me to go first, right? I'll go first because once Sid starts, you know, that'll fill the show. So, well, I guess for me, I was 15-year-old, and I went to a friend's house, and he was all the vinyl there, and he said, "Here, have a listen to this," and he pulled some Bon Jovi out, "Slippery When Wet," and we had a bit listen to that. Thought great, and then next time he pulled out an Anthrax album. I thought, this is a bit different, you know. And then, of course, like any natural 15-year-old, you think, oh, this music's great. Let's form a band. And none of us had even an instrument, you know. So I said, well, you know, I can hold a bit of a note. I'll be the singer. But we couldn't find a drummer. So I decided, right, I'll go out and I'll buy some drums. It can't be too hard, can it, you know. So I went and looked at some drums. Decided I was going to buy them. By the time I went back, they'd gone. So I ended up being the bass player and singer at the time. But we were sort of in that situation where we just never managed to get a full band together to get things moving. So we sort of it just fell apart generally, like a lot of young bands do. And then we sort of. It would be sort of maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I'd spent years just playing guitar myself and doing my own little recordings, and I started to do a few more sort of open mic nights. We're doing a few gigs with an acoustic, and I thought I want to do a little bit of something different. Try and do a bit of the heavier stuff like I used to be into back in the 80s and early 90s. So I started putting a few tracks together, went looking for forums to post them on, and ended up in one of the metal groups writing reviews because I saw them looking for a reviewer. So I started writing a few reviews, and next thing I got the guy who ran the page came on to us and said, "This guy over in America is trying to get a few bands to go on his show. You come into contact with a lot of the bands. How about helping him out?" And that turned out to be Sid.
No, it didn't. It turned out to be Billy Graham. Don't stop. You were the first person to ever review Striper.
Hey, don't say that because he's a big fan. He's a big fan, as Sid.
So come on, that's a quality story. Let's see if Sid matches it, though. I want to see if Sid can match this.
Well, music for me, it's always been since I was a little kid, like 8, 9, 10 years old. I grew up in the MTV era where you watch bands like Men at Work, you know, ZZ Top videos. So that I was young, 9, 10 years old, so I was impressionable. But I started playing actual music when I was going to church, and I fell in love with playing live with people and the interaction. Being, you know, I was 11 years old. I was like, all right, I love this. I love performing in front of people. I love seeing the crowd and the people get into it. So I started exploring music, and then I got introduced to a Motley Crue that was back, I think it was like 83. It was the Shout of the Devil album. The first time I heard it scared the shit out of me. And then I come back to it later on, and then I fell in love with it. But I just like, it was that moment in time that kind of defined my path of what I wanted to do in music. So I wanted to be just like Tommy Lee. So I started playing the drum, start playing the drums more often than just playing it at church. And then I started playing for bands when I was about 14 or 15 years old. And one of the bands that I played with, we had a battle of bands here in Indiana. And the prize, if you win, you got to open up for Metallica during their Justice for All tour. It wasn't a big crowd or nothing like that. I mean, it was just people just now starting to come into the arena. It wasn't maybe 1,000 people, 2,000 people there, but it was the thought of being able to do it. And we won. We got to perform in front of the band. So that was my first taste of really being in front of a crowd and seeing the interaction and seeing the electricity between you and the crowd. And it was a love affair from that point on. And I started playing music off and on my whole adult life. And I got into my 40s, and I told myself that it was time for me to get sober. So I got myself sober. I stopped playing music for a while, and I started, getting myself into other things, finding different outlets for. Now that I've got myself sober, I needed to find new outlets for that energy that I was spending all that time doing drugs on. I needed to channel it somewhere. So I started dabbling a little bit in the spiritual community. And then I got away from that a little bit. After 2 years, I kind of built up a little bit of reputation, and I was like, you know what, I want to do something different. I wanted to bring two worlds together. In other words, I wanted to bring the spirituality world and the music world together in one place, hence why I created the Sacred Gates. The idea was that music, believe it or not, is very religious. There's a lot of innuendos, and there's a lot of meaning behind it. As when I say meaning, the energy that's when you hear a song that's your favorite song, you get pumped up, you feel that energy, you start to feel that fire in your belly. And then you hear certain ballads that just hit a tune. And I wanted to be able to take the spiritual community and the music community and put them together. I didn't know how I was going to do that because I was in another community at the time, and I wanted to put my feet wet in the music community. And so I started reaching out to groups, and I got introduced to Bob. He introduced me to one of my very first bands, and from that point on, it just skyrocketed. We haven't even been doing this, and not even a year yet, have we, Bob? I think October 7th, we've been doing Inner Demon Media for exactly 1 year. It'll be its anniversary then.
You said when you talk about the spiritual community, what are you talking about?
Paganism. I'm a pagan.
Right.
So I got my start doing shows in the pagan community. I had a channel I had on YouTube that was called Heathen TV. We had about 7 different shows that was aired every single day of the week. And I brought about 13 or 14 people together, and we created this thing, and it took off. It just really took off. But at the time, I don't think I was ready for how much it was going to take off. And things just kind of got crazy. So I stepped away from it for 4 or 5 months. And then I was like, okay, I'm ready to come back, but I don't want to just come back into the pagan community. I want to be able to get my feet wet in the music community, but bring the two worlds together. There's a lot of stigma behind witchcraft and paganism. And I wanted to be able to find a way to find common ground for everybody, for the mainstream people that thinks it's scary or not into that kind of stuff. Little did they know that music and magic are exactly the same exact thing.
That's cool, because I mean, obviously, when I heard you saying that, the natural thing for me to assume would be like Christian or something like that. But I didn't get the feeling with the name Inner Demon Media that it was going to be that. That's why I asked the question. So what, you talked here about Inner Demon Media or Inner Demon, actually. I think can you talk us through? So it's been less than a year, or it's just been a year. So how did that come about between you two guys? Because like Bob, you're from the northeast of England, quite clearly. Instead, you're from America. So it's, when I first came across you two guys, it was like I was trying to work out how the hell did they even start this together. It's all right for me and Ian. We're either side of Liverpool.
I call it more of a divine timing, really. I think when me and Bob first met, we talked, but we didn't talk a lot. He was like you said earlier, we was introduced by somebody else, another owner of a group, And it's like, hey, could you give this guy Sid some help lining some bands up? And then what was it, about 6-7 months later, I came across you again and I seen you making posts, and I was like, is he not part of the group anymore? So I reached out to him.
Yeah, that was pretty much how it went. It was the August when we first started contacting each other, the last year when I was working and trying to introduce some of the bands. And I was doing this feature band of the day on just a metal community, and I started introducing them to Sid. And what I would do is similar to what we've done with yourself and Forge, John, is that I would introduce them, set up a chat page, and then sort of drop out and leave Sid to do his work. And I was starting to get a bit disillusioned with what I was doing at the time, and sort of stepped back from it in November, just to take a break. But I was still sort of like a member of the group. But I lost the admin role in the January, and I was doing sort of album reviews. And I think one of the first ones I did was something like Die Ego, and then I did a Kinstrife review of the albums and what have you. And instead of being an admin where you can just post it straight onto the page, when you don't have that status, you submit the review, and an admin has to approve it. And Sid was on there, and he came to us saying, "Why am I having to approve your posts?" And I said, "Well, I'm no longer an admin." And he turned around and said, "Well, would you do that for me?" So I said, "Well, yeah, no worries. I'm happy to post, see what comes on." And it was probably about a month and a half later, because in all of this period that I've been doing this, I'd been doing a voiceover monthly for the Sound Pylon, where I was picking a band of the month. And I got a T-shirt of one of the bands that I'd helped out, called Scarred by Truth. And they'd sent it through to us, sort of like say thanks for the work I'd done. And I thought, well, okay, what can I do? Normally when people get merch like this, they show themselves on with a picture of wearing that merch. Nobody knew what I looked like. I was faceless, effectively, all apart from the skull. That was all anybody knew. Even Sid didn't know what I looked like, even though we'd sort of known each other for 6 months. So it got to that point that I thought, well, how can I help them out and help everybody else out? So I did this thing, well, I'll reveal me wearing this T-shirt if we get so many follows and likes for Inner Demon and the Sound Pylon. And Sid said, well, look, when you do the reveal, will you do it on Inner Demon? And that was our first show together, wasn't it? So
yeah. I mean, I pushed him a little bit because he wasn't sure if he wanted to kind of go public with it. You know what I mean? The contest was one thing. Like with anything on Facebook, posts get lost in feed. Eventually that post would have gone by and nobody would ever seen Bob. So he was still a little bit hesitant about doing them. And then I was like, look, dude, we need to do a show together. I'm looking for a co-host for Into the Fire. I had 2 ladies, Jules and Mush, that was kind of like a co-host when I first started. They're the ladies of Effigy of Hate, but I needed a little bit of a mix. I needed someone I could play off of a bit. You know what I mean? And so I brought Bob on. I just had a really good feeling about the chemistry that we was going to have. Is just one of those gut feelings, He's like, I know this is going to be good. I just got to push him enough to get him to say, all right, screw it. I'll go Facebook Live with you every week and do a show. And when he did it, it was the first 2 or 3 shows we did. We had the ladies with us. And then after that, we kind of went and started doing them ourselves together.
I must admit, the first
time morning in the background.
Yeah, I heard. I think the first time I spoke to the 2 of you personally, I remember saying, I'm just disappointed Bob's actually human, because if you remember, Carly and Nathan were doing all these things. Is this him? And putting up all that, and it was all like humanoids and robots and all this, and we're putting up. So when I actually saw that it was actually just a guy from the Northeast, I was like, see, that's a bit disappointing.
There were actually 9 what we would call them the half Bobs, because it was half the Bob Bones face and half of the person. Could this be Bob Bones? And I remember it even upset sort of like some of the people who were actually on the image, because I was at the end of it, I put a collage of all 9 together saying Bob is in this picture, and I think, oh, which one is it? But there was actually in the Bob Bones islet, there's actually a small image of myself sitting in the sort of tear duct, and absolutely impossible to see unless you really magnify it, you know. But it was just a bit of fun, and I think it took the sound panel at the time up from about 600 follows up to about 1,500 in that short period that we were doing.
It did, because it was Carlene that started talking to me about you guys. Then, and because I was noticing this thing with them and you, etc. So, but I didn't know who you guys were. So yeah, it did. It helped him a lot with that. It was cool because it was something. And then obviously the Bob Bones Band of the Month and the voice that you put on and everything like that. Which, if you notice, that the Nathan does it with King Nathan and Queen, he's shit at it, isn't he? He's crap at it. But I'm noticing you should actually charge him for that, because that's copyright. He's stealing your copyright, dude.
I'm going to send Nathan a copy of this just so you can see that he said he's crap at it.
Oh, no, don't worry. That won't be cut out. That will go out in the show. You're watching this. If you're watching this, and you may be a good mate of mine, but you're fucking shit at that, mate.
Like, I'm not being funny, but it was like ordering a replacement from Wish. That's how bad it is.
And I'll tell you another thing, the size was terrible as well.
Was it a bit like the size of one of those King Voodoo sex toys?
Yeah, that's it. That's the one. Yeah.
Let's not talk about that, Bob.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you guys started with Inner Demon, and you two decided to work together, so can you just talk us through how it came, what you did, what you do as Inner Demon currently, or what you did in the past that you don't do now, if there is any of that, what you're doing currently, and etc.
Well, it was kind of a little bit of a growing pain for us, wasn't it, a little bit, Bob? At first, we wanted to be a record label. So we started it off with, as it was actually named, Inner Demon Records. That worked out for a little bit until we started realizing that we're not a record label anymore.
And it's a pain in the ass to be one as well.
It really is a pain in the ass to be one. You're actually right. And so we started knowing, as with anything, you start something fresh and new. It's a growing process, and you kind of finding your lane and what your path is and what's really working. And for me, it wasn't working. The record thing wasn't working for me. I started noticing that we do more promoting than we did anything at all. So we kind of started thinking of different ideas for the change name, but keep the whole Inner Demon theme around it. And that's when we decided to change it to Inner Demon Media.
Yeah, it kind of helped out at the time as well, because we managed to pick up a Facebook ban on our main page. So all of a sudden we threw everything behind the media, trying to get the numbers up, because we were going from having a page where there was maybe 5,000 followers to all of a sudden we had like 500 on the other page. I mean, luckily we got the other page back now, so we use both. But yeah, we were looking at one point of sort of trying to be this record label, trying to put out maybe compilation albums and stuff like that. But the main interest for us was we had the radio platform. I mean, when I first started chatting with Sid, he was doing shows on another station, and he was saying, look, I've got the facilities to do my own radio show. What should we do? Should we go for it? It's always been an ambition of mine. But everybody says that on average they last about 1 week, because, you know, and I said, well, if you don't try, you don't get anywhere. So we said, right, let's do it. Let's launch it in the April. So we've just passed the 6-month point where we've been running that now. But it was mainly on the back of, like, we were looking at it thinking, well, how are we going to do the records? All we want is to attract bands in that we can actually play the music. And we want their music to be able to play for free. We give them the promotion for free and all this sort of thing. But as soon as you start trying to become a record label and looking at contracts, and then we had one where they came back, where they'd thrown it past a lawyer and came back saying, we want this change, we want that change, blah, blah. And we thought, too much hassle, you know.
Too much hassle. We want the idea. We wanted to have fun. I mean, the Inner Demon Records phase was nice because it was a learning experience for us, for me at least. There was a lot of learning curves that I didn't know. I wasn't familiar with what was going on as far as social media is concerned, and as far as the music community was concerned. I didn't really have a whole lot of a grasp of what was going on. So it was more of a learning curve for me, and I was kind of picking up on things that were working. And I was once you started getting into the contracts and all that, I was like, you know what, Bob, this is just a headache. I mean, this was becoming a headache. So it was like, you know what, let's just have fun. Let's just pick bands that we're excited about, that we want to hear their music, it sets a fire in us. Let's focus on those bands. And then we started focusing on bands like that, which led us into eventually with you guys Forge.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I liked about you two guys, there was more than one thing, but the thing that hooked me was you were doing it for the right reasons. You know, it's a burning passion. The bands that you like and the scenes that you like is a burning passion. And I think also the thing I liked about you guys was you're like me, you've got a wide, the types of music that you like and listen to is quite wide. You know, we all three of us like country music, all three of us like metal, all three of us like rock, you know, and Ian does as well. But I'm just saying that when I spoke to you, that was something that shone out. What do you think the plan? What's your kind of next? If you're looking at your next 6 months and a year in Demon Media, what you're planning and doing, developing it wise?
Ruling the world.
You might find there's a few people in the way of that, dude.
Well, I like challenging myself, and so some of my goals I like to see eventually is seeing a dedicated Inner Demon Media Roku channel on Roku, so where people can go to this channel, they can watch 24/7 music, they can watch the shows that we do. And you know, when I say I want to go worldwide, I really want to go. My goal is to go worldwide. I want to be able people to go onto the TV, scroll down the TV channels, and come across the channel like Inner Demon Media, where they can go find bands like bands from Forge or bands that we work with individually. They can go to. They can go watch music videos. They can see some of the past interviews. They'll be able to watch some of our shows live as well as we're doing them on Roku. I really want to. I like being told that I can't, because I like proving people that I can.
So yeah, because you're right, because you know, Ian and I have had this conversation lots of times and with other people as part of this show as well, where we all get into music because we were exposed to it. Because in those days, you could be exposed to it because you could see it in Britain, you could see it in the old Grey Whistle Test, or, you know, TFI Friday, or the Tube and things like Top of the Pops, all that kind of stuff. So you could hear it in the radio still, the type of music we like. And then later in the 80s, MTV, as you said, that's where you discover the bands. Nowadays, young people just, unless their parents or their grandparents are into it, they don't get exposed to it. Certainly not in the UK anyway. Is that right, Bob? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the other things that we're looking to do is we've said we've had a few issues with various things like the Facebook and platforms that we put and stuff out on. Even the radio platform that we use, it's a little awkward to navigate because we're using systems that are set up by just independent companies or organizations. So we're bringing on our own website in the next 3 weeks, all going well. That should be launching, which will allow us to have our chat function and the radio button just sitting there a little bit more easily to access, and a news stream down the side of it where we can put little details on so people can see everything about Inner Demon and what's going on a little bit more easily. It's a starting point. It might be nice eventually to be able to sort of find some way of putting some of the shows onto there, or at least links to the shows, and just making it one easy access point, because everything with social media is just so fractured, where people are using so many different facilities now to try and get there. And I think, like what Sid said about the Roku, the easier you can make it, the more it drags the community in, because you don't have to mess around on different platforms. The amount of times I've seen people join us on our chat afterwards, after a show, and say, "Oh, I was listening, but I couldn't find out how to do the like talk in the chat group or whatever on the different pages." Because even when we stream out ourselves, we stream to so many different pages that sometimes you can have one person sitting in one stream and 7 in another and whatever. So it's just trying to slowly bring all the different facilities together so it makes it a bit easier for people.
You're right, because you know, obviously you guys know I do a radio show in Scotland Rocks Radio, as does Sound Piling goes out in it as well.
Mhm.
And they recently did the deal with Support the Music Scene app, which was launched over here, which is a free app. And you can go into it and you can see what gigs are coming up, etc. But there's also a bit for the radio stations. So you can go into radio stations and you can go in there, you can go Scotland Rocks Radio, click it, and it takes you straight into whatever's playing there and then. And they've noticed, or so the guys told me, they've noticed a lot more people listening, because guess what? It's an app, it's on the phone, and people can navigate it easily.
Yeah.
Whereas before it was links, click on the link and it takes you to here and etc. But if it was on the app, it's on that app, it's made a big difference, they said.
So there you go, guys. Get an app. Do an iPhone, do an app. It sounds daft, like, but they are quite easy to set up as well. But it's something that, like I say, I'm looking into at the moment. But I think it is the next step for people. And obviously, with what happened last night worldwide, I'm sure a lot more people are going to be looking for different ways to source information. And obviously, if Facebook goes down and Zuckerberg loses another 6 billion,
yeah, crazy.
Yeah, it speaks volumes. Like, but I totally think that it's another step where we should all be looking.
MMH. There you go. MMH, so Midland Metalheads. That's an app they've got. So you can go in there and like anything you're doing can be run off of that. So it'll link to a website, I would imagine. So basically, it's just an app that leads to that. So if I want to go in and go, where's the reviews, which shows, I want to listen back to the shows, etc., etc. But the other one you could do in the short term is that one that I've just said, which is that one. Support the Music Scene. So you see how it's come up there?
Yeah.
And that cost me, I put our events on it. I think it cost me £1 a month. But you can go in the radio stations and then you can see the radio stations.
Nice.
You can see Scotland Rocks Radio. So I'm going straight onto Scotland Rocks Radio.
Definitely worth looking into.
So if you don't do your own one, you can, live off the back of something like that. Because quite frankly, like you say, it's fractured, because if I try to find you guys, there can be any God's amount of things going on at the same time on different pages, like you said, Bob. Whereas I know that if I come on at 9 o'clock on a Saturday night, I'm going to find you,
Yeah, it is. It's difficult. I mean, that's the one thing that we wanted the website for. I mean, websites aren't the cheapest thing to set up, unless you've got a little bit of knowledge on them and you're using a very basic constructor. But luckily, I have 2 programmers who be children, so I've kind of got a bit of a free service going here. But the good thing is that now we'll be able to turn around and say, if you want to find us, go to our website, you'll find all the links you need from there, and it just makes it so much easier for people to log on.
I tell you, it's amazing how much of progress we've actually made in the last year, honestly, what we've been doing.
Let me kick this dog out.
I mean, I started.
Don't worry, everyone. He is seriously not kicking the dog. He's just picking it up gently and putting it out with a size 10 off its arse.
If you left it the other side of the door, it would have bloody welted me back in.
He used to play American football. He used to do the field goals of American football. I don't think for 1 second he just pushed it out the door.
So let's talk something else as well, like, because obviously I've been quite lucky to be on your show twice. We won't say that we won on a certain quiz and a certain forfeit, which is still on the internet somewhere. But what I would say is, like, if any bands who are really interested in coming on your show, what advice would you give them beforehand? Because you don't want someone who's just going to be quiet. You don't want someone who's just going to be.
Well, I usually try to bring everybody in about 10, 15 minutes early, where it gives me an opportunity to kind of break the ice with the bands, with the artists, kind of get them relaxed. And then I always stress to them that this is not going to be your normal interview. This is not going to be your normal 20 questions. We're going to sit here, we're going to ask some questions, but we're going to have fun while we're doing it. And I want it to be organic. I want the people who are watching to see a different side of the band, not the guys just up on the stage or, you know, performing, or the guys, you know, doing your normal kind of interview. I want people to see the band laugh. I want people to see the band crack jokes. I want people to see that, you know, yes, they are talented musicians, but they're human at the end of the day too, just like you or I.
Yeah, you're right, because a few weeks ago you did one with the guys from Unknown Refuge, and 4 days later, Ian and I was with them at a gig in Wigan. King Voodoo were playing, and so were Unknown Refuge. So I was talking to them about it, and the two of them were like, we just couldn't stop laughing because of them things, you know, the little excerpts he put up between. They'd never seen, one of them Alex had never actually looked at it before. So, you know, when you poke the hamster and the hamster turns around and all that, he says, I couldn't answer any questions because I kept just thinking, when's he going to put another one of those up? If I remember rightly, I actually said, is there any way you can send me all these as an outtake, all these things? They thoroughly enjoyed it, as did young Chick from Bad Actress. He was another one that did it. And I think that's a good thing, because you can talk to people that are kids that are that age, you know, 19, 18, 19, 20. But then again, you know, you'll talk to the guys in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and it doesn't make you have a way. And I think that's the beauty of what you do, is that it's not like it's light-hearted, but there is a lot of good information in there, and you do give the bands a good platform for people to understand them better. Yeah, I would say,
when you watch a lot of the shows that kind of like what we do on Facebook, you'll see a lot of them where it's just a sit-down interview, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I wanted to add something a little extra. So my thoughts was, when I brought King Voodoo on, when I brought Ian and the band on, the idea was I wanted to showcase their music as well, not just talk about it, but I want people to hear what's going on and why are we such big fans. You know, I could bring somebody on like Ian here on the show that people are watching here in the States, but they have no clue of why I'm a fan of King Voodoo if they're not able to hear none of the music. So at times it's a risk, because you got so many issues with Facebook when it comes to copyrights and stuff like that. But it's, for me, I don't care, because it's in the moment. People are watching the show are able to hear the music regardless. Now, later on, they might not be able to, but they can always go to our YouTube channel and check all the shows out. You get all the shows in their entireties. The music is all there. But for me, I find it more interactive and more fun when you have a crowd of people watching, that the band can see and interact with them as well.
Yeah, that is cool. And the other thing I like about what you do as well is, more often than not, you've not actually checked the videos out of the bands that you're about to play. So you almost get a reaction video from you, because it's like, fucking hell, I didn't realize it was that good, which I love. And I actually did it. I recorded one of my radio shows today, and I did it with 2 or 3 songs. Like, I didn't listen to them before I put them on the show. And it was like, at the end, I was like, I'm going to try this, because normally I listen, and if I go, I don't fucking like them, I'm not playing them. I mean, I can tell kind of like if I'm just never going to like them, if it's that black and death metal or something like that, it's just not going on my show. But, you know, but I look at it, and there was one I was like, hell, that's great, that, you know, and I liked it. And that's, you did one show the other night, doing the same thing, 4 videos. I think it was the Outlaw Orchestra. Yeah, and Limp Bizkit. Limp Bizkit, Bad Vibes, the Bad Vibes. But that's what it is. It's people watching you and people interacting with you two guys realize that you're actually fans. You're music fans.
We love music. We love music. I could probably speak for Bob just as much. His heart's set just like mine. We just love music, and I feel blessed and honored that I'm able to work with so many bands and artists to be able to share this music freely as I have been. And, you know, being part of, you know, eternal families like the Voodoo family, you know, to me, that's huge. You know, that at the end of the day is my reward, is, you know, creating these bonds and these friendships and building off of them, not only for myself, but for them as well. Because if I can be one extra step to the ultimate goal, then my job's done.
Yeah, we also, I mean, one of the things that sort of moved over the time as well is when we first started doing the shows together and we were doing the format that Sid was already working with, the Into the Fire, we'd bring on bands and we'd play 3 or 4 of their tracks, talk about them, that sort of thing. But there was quite a few bands where we were saying, oh, like their music, can we get hold of them? And you'd speak to them, and they didn't always have music videos that we could play out. And so we had to try and think of, well, how can we manage this? And we had this idea which evolved into talking with Demons, where we thought, well, we can bring them on, see a different side of the band, maybe just play a few different pieces of music from a number of people. And the show that you're referring to, where we were doing the reactions the other night, John, came about really because Sid came back from a band. We'd had a bit of time where we hadn't actually got anybody booked in for the night, and Sid said, "How about we do this?" And we just play around with the formats and see what we can get to work and what happens and where it can take us. And I think it seems to go down well because people don't always have everything fully prepared. We when Sid got his band the other week, we were supposed to be speaking to a guy called Phil Styles, who plays with Final Coil, just the guitar, with just the singing. And we've had them on the show. Copyright actually nabbed the whole music setup for that one, but he's got his own individual solo project going, which he hasn't really got any videos or music out for yet. So we could have maybe played a bit of Final Coil so you can say, look, this is what Phil's like. But we didn't have anything that would have shown his solo project. The Talking with Demons set up, bringing him on, having a bit joke and a bit laugh and a bit of a quiz, just gives another feature where we can fill a show up and introduce people to him.
I think, to be honest with you, I think that reaction thing is definitely a show that you should do, because the thing is that makes it different as you're honest about what you're seeing and hearing, very honest. And the other thing is it's interactive with other people in the chat group that's in the things they're saying as well. And then when you guys start reading them and start pissing yourself laughing at something somebody's written. And honestly, I thought it was a great show. I thought it was great. We thoroughly enjoyed it.
Like I said, I really like the interaction with the audience. And I think that's where a lot of my following has come from, is that I am so interactive with the people that follow what I do. I want them to think that they're part of my journey as well. Not only am I part of what they're doing, but they're part of what I'm doing. And I kind of open the doors for that people who follow what I do. I open the doors for them to kind of follow what I do and see the progression of where I began and where I'm at today. And I think that's where I've had so much success, and I have so much respect for the community that I'm in, because I do those things. I spend time with people and I make them feel like they are part of what I'm doing.
We used to call him the Metal Messiah, you know. You should see what he can do with fish and wine.
I'm getting really drunk and my belly full.
So as far as Inner Demon Media is concerned, so is the plan to take it so that it become and monetize it, in other words, so it becomes a business that earns you a living?
I guess you'd have to answer that one, Sid. I mean, for me, it's never been a major issue because I have at least deal this way. I mean, obviously, it'd be lovely to make a living out of music, but it's got to be right at the right time and in the right way.
Everything has its divine timing. If I put enough out into this world of what I'm doing, and it shows through my passion of what I'm doing, at the end of the day, I know that all that I'm doing for these bands and I'm doing for these artists and doing shows for these people, at the end of the day, I know that the universe is going to bless me one way or another. And I take it for whatever it is. I don't take anything for granted. I go with flow. Now, as far as monetizing, it's going to take care of itself, because I firmly believe that what I'm doing and what we're doing at Inner Demon Media is going to blow up, and it's going to eventually pay for itself.
Yeah, we had contact a while ago of a band that was released by another organization that was charging them, and I think we were told at the time that they were paying knocking on for about $100 a month. And we just looked at that and thought, whoa, you know, this is just, it didn't feel right, because this guy was coming to us saying, like, what would you charge to do it? And we were saying, no, we don't. A lot of these bands don't have big followings, and it would be wrong for us to look at charging them, getting them thrown the money away. When we can get the platform to the right point, and hopefully if it could be monetized without it having to affect bands and sort of lead bands who would just chasing dreams down the wrong path, then maybe it'll be the right thing. But we have to get it right. We don't want it to become some sort of money making thing that makes it.
I will never charge an artist, a band, a dime, ever.
No, I was thinking. Bob. It said I was thinking more of the Roku thing. I think the Roku
the
thing.
Roku thing, that'll pay for itself, because once it costs a little bit of money to invest into it, but if you look at, you got to be a visionary. You have to look at the long haul. How is it going to benefit what I'm doing in the long run? When you start something like Roku, there's different phases of ads that you can put on your channel that you get paid for automatically. So that's one way. And then, you know, now one day, like sponsorships that people, you know, once I build enough of a name for myself in entertainment media, you know, people will start paying for paid ads running on our radio station. People want to maybe put an ad up on one of our shows. So I'm never going to charge a band a single dime for their gifts, because my thoughts are that they are gifts that are meant to be shared.
Yeah, I agree fully, because again, we had this conversation with another band following the information I've already told you about, this guy paying $80 to $100 a month. And I had a band turn around and say, well, Christ, even if you only charged a small amount, it'd be worth it to get them out. But we don't want to be doing that. There's enough out there to sort of get sponsorship or to get some sort of advertising or stuff to generate enough for what would be needed if that ever becomes the route. But in fairness to anybody who's going to advertise through us as well, if we ever get to that point, we've got to make sure that we have the listener numbers and the viewer numbers up to the right sort of levels that will attract them in.
I asked the question purely and simply because I guessed the answer. But I wanted you guys to say it, which was, you're never going to charge a band a penny for doing it. What you're going to do is you're going to use your gifts and their gifts, put it together, and create a market where the end user wants to sow their seed into it in order to have access to what you create.
We want people to be hungry for us, in a sense. We're starting to get that now, aren't we, Bob? We're starting to get where these bands are really hungry to be part of what we're doing.
To be honest, with that new shaved cut, I can see the figures going up in no time.
I think you're definitely on the right. You're definitely on the right, because it's like I had a conversation yesterday. Two conversations with two bands yesterday, and they were specifically talking about festivals and getting on festivals next year. And I'm like, guys, the reality is you're nowhere near ready for it, because not musically, but because it's a cartel. Most of this in the UK is a cartel, and it's a cartel that's running it, and you're 18 months away from it, because that's how cyclical it is. I says, and they say, well, how can we raise it? I says, well, what we need to do is we need to work together, and this is what you guys do as part of it. We need to work together with you, like-minded people, to raise your profile, so we're not having to go to these festivals saying, can my band play there? They're coming to us and saying, we want. And then the power is in your hands. And that's what I think that's the gift that you guys have got, to be able to help bands to potentially get to that stage.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing. Yeah, I mean, me and Sid have been approached again recently by another setup, can't actually remember the name of them off the top of their head, but I looked at their arrangements, and they again were starting to charge bands and saying, look, if you pay this amount, we'll give you X amount of posts on Facebook and Instagram and wherever a week. And I was looking at that and I was thinking, Christ, these people are talking about doing thousands of Facebook posts. Nobody's going to pay attention to all that.
Do you know what though? Like, you know what I mean, Bob? This is one of the things which pisses me off in the music industry. One of the reasons why I've got on so well with John and 4Jamp and stuff like that, it's not the fact that he doesn't charge, it's the actual fact that he's after the same goal as myself. We're just trying to get music out there. We're not trying to get done over by bigwigs promising you the world and stuff like that. We've all been through the shit. It's one of the reasons why we started the Scouser and the Scot, is to give advice to bands, because there are genuine people out there who want to help you. There are genuine people who want to push you in the right direction.
And honest people.
Yeah, and honest people. And he will be brutally honest. Like, you know what I mean? I've had many a chat with John where I've pinged him over like a piece of music and he's gone, fucking hell, you need to change this, and this. Like, and I've gone, okay. Do you know what? That's fine. And that's the way we work. However, you will get other people who will go, put it out. Let's see what you get, and I'll take 10%. And you're like, wait there a second. What the fuck? Like, you know what I mean? There's no money in music. There isn't. No. For up and coming bands, there is no money in music unless you strike it very, very, very lucky and you just stumble upon it. There's a lot of hard work. There's a lot of heartbreak, and you will, like, you know what I mean, as COVID has proven, be bands splitting up left, right, and centre because there's no dedication because of the issues, the money challenges, and trying to get things going.
If you don't love playing music, there's no point in being out here doing it.
Exactly.
And you've got to love it. For me out here doing what I'm doing, if I didn't love music as much as I did, what point is me being out here doing shows and help push bands if I wasn't passionate about it? If your heart's not into it and you're only out there, and I see this a lot, you know, bands coming to us, wanting to promote it, but they're only trying to ride on a shirt tail of an idea instead of them pushing themselves and working to be a better band and working on promoting yourselves. They want a tendency to ride the shirt tails of what we do. And I usually see through that, you know, if your heart's not there, and if you don't love what you're doing and you're only trying to do it to get a fan base so you can boost your ego, I'm not working with you. I'm just not doing it.
Yeah, I used to see this quite regularly, even back into the days when I first started doing the sort of band of the day posts that were going out. You would get bands who would come in and they'd sort of like say, oh, thanks for doing that. You know, really appreciate it. And then they'd sort of vanish and you'd think, well, how do we keep the attention of this? So that's when I started doing this band of the month idea. I said, look, if you get the band of the day, let's go for a band of the month for that month, and you keep the attention on them for a month. And that's where we started doing it through the sound pile and I started doing the voiceovers. But you will find that everybody's just got that short attention span, and you can't blame people for some of the people who might look at it and think, look, I'm into music, I want to make it. It would be great to make it we live in, but genuinely, it's just not going to happen. You know, it's not going to happen. It takes a lot of work to. Well, we nowhere near it, how we sit, and we look how long we've been doing it, you know. So
I think to be honest, I actually say to our bands, if we can get you to the stage where it's not costing you money to ply your trade, then that's us winning.
Yep.
You know, that's a good first goal, because in reality we can't guarantee anything beyond that. And, you know, and I think musicians need to realize, especially if they're doing rock and metal and the kind of the things that most young kids don't even know exist. You're talking about that, and record companies aren't buying into it, and nobody's pushing it. If you're applying that your trade in those markets, I think it's even more realistic that you concentrate just purely on enjoying it and seeing where it takes you.
Because, it is, I mean, certainly music-wise, back before I was doing all this with Sid and I was writing songs, my intention was just to hopefully write a song that was decent enough that one day somebody would turn around and say, that's a cracking song, that. So I was going out and performing them just at open mics and little things like that. There was no cash involved. It was generally, oh, someone's putting an event on, they want some background music, will you go along and play? And just someone turning around at the end of the night and saying, that was all right, son. It makes a hell of a difference. And if you're doing it for any more than that, you're probably wasting your time to start off with, so.
Ian and I's favourite comment, I can't even remember who it was. A few people actually, when we've interviewed this, like musicians, have said, when you look back, when you're much older and you're looking back on your musical career, what would success look like? And the best answer will always have been is playing on that stage with your band of brothers and sisters, if there's women in the group, and your fans singing your songs back at you. That's success.
Yeah.
There's nothing, to be perfectly honest, it's one of the best feelings I've ever had. And it sounds daft, but being there and having people sing at you your song, your lyrics, what you wrote,
there's nothing compared
you're
to
like,
it.
you're sort of going, Christ, that's quite powerful, like, you know what I mean? And like, as we all know, music's a very powerful healing thing. It's something that people like, whatever mood it is, there's music for your mood. There's
right.
music makes your world go round. And I don't give it, it's a great line. It's a
I'm
great,
glad you
it's
said
an honest
that,
opinion.
because I talk about that a lot. Music for me is, and it kind of defines it as like a time capsule at sorts. You can go back 20, 30 years from now, or you go back to a song that you listened to as a child, and it brings you back to that time. You remember what you was doing, who you was with. You can remember, singing in the backseat of the car as your parents are driving you to the grocery store to a certain song. And that's where the magic's at, creating these memories and these feelings. I mean, you're listening to a song and it reminds you of someone you lost. And then you can go to the next song and it reminds you of somebody you love. And you go to the next and it reminds you of your child.
Oh, yeah. You're 100% right. There's an advert out over here just now, and it's a cat walking along. And it's a song I'd completely forgotten about called Walk Tall, Walk Straight, and Look the Whole World in the Eye by Val Doonican. And as soon as I heard it, I was back to about 7-year-old in my granddad's car, and it was on, or in his living room, and it just instantly, boom, and it's like
that's right there, and it's like it was just yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, it's like on Saturday we had an all-day festival at the Waterloo in Blackpool, and for the first time ever, I actually compared it and emceed it. So I introduced the bands and took the bands down, and it's the first time I've been up on the stage. And all the time I've been doing this since I was a singer back in the 80s, and being on the stage or being at the side of the stage waiting to go on as the band finish and watching the crowd was the most amazing thing. Seeing the reaction and seeing the smiles and people's faces and people loving it. And I hadn't seen that, because from behind it's different, or at the side, but stood up on that stage, and I actually kind of got that pang where I went, fucking hell, I wish I was back singing again. I didn't want to be, you know what I mean? You don't see it any other way. And it is magic. It's magic.
Did you get the nerves when you went out on stage then,
John? No, mate. Never ever did. When I was a young kid, I had a really good voice. Like as a boy, I was like, they wanted me to go and do that fucking proper choral stuff. When my balls dropped, that was a different story. and I used to get really nervous, and so much so that I'd feign illness so that I didn't need to go to parties because I knew somebody was going to ask me to sing. I would actually feign illness not to go. And then, as my mum sweetly put it, once I got to 16, and he actually couldn't sing anymore, then he wanted to be a singer. bless my mother, that's how she used to put it. But yeah, no, I don't get it. I've never got nervous for stuff like that. It's weird. But
I do. Bob knows I have a little bit of a hidden talent that I don't share at all. So like, I won't let him share what I had a little music project where I was doing some singing, and I was doing it with my best friend, and he ended up passing away, and I kind of left this music just kind of sitting around, and I didn't do nothing with it. Some of these songs were just so good. And so I don't know what, I really don't know why I'm so nervous about it, because I know I don't have a bad voice, and I know I'm not a bad entertainer, but I think it's the fact that this was something that me and him did together, I think. And to put it out into the world, it makes me nervous for some reason.
Nah, mate, no, you're wrong, because quite simply, that thing that you shared with him might just help somebody that's going through the same thing now.
Now you can ask Bob. There's some songs that I wrote and sang that are really just really deep, and I didn't really realize when I was writing them and when we was making this music that it was going to have so much of a significant meaning behind it, because it wasn't but like 2 weeks later, after we actually finished one of our last tracks we was going to do, he passed away unexpectedly. And it hit me fucking hard, and I was like, man, I don't even want to listen to it. And it sat on a shelf for 5 years. And then until I met Bob this past year, I started kind of editing and doing some work on these songs. And I started introducing them to Bob, and Bob's like, we need to play this on the radio. I'm like, man, I don't know.
Right, Bob. Here's the deal, Bob. You know, we said the other night there when you were doing the reaction videos, right?
Yeah.
And you said when you were going to do one of your songs, and then I would replace you on that show doing the review, right? So me and you'll do one reviewing Sid's songs.
Honestly, I have heard them.
I bet they're good.
They are good. I've even snuck them out in occasionally on my radio show just to play them. And it's one of those. It's one of those things that I guess everybody has that self-doubt. I mean, I hate my voice when I sing. I've written loads of songs, and majority of them are. It's quite interesting what you said, that the songs might help someone, but every time I've written a song, it's generally got a very dark theme, because that's just the way that when I write best. And I think sometimes other people pick up on these things when they do, and it does probably help them. But it's like, I think it's a natural thing with an artist that, especially when you're not actually maybe surrounded by the comfort of a band, to turn around and say, no, actually, mate, that's all right, you know, that you have that self-doubt to try and push yourself forward.
I sneak them in. If you guys ever watched any of the couple new episodes of Talking with Demons, the intro to the show is actually me singing and the project that I was doing with him. So if anybody watches this later, go check out one of the last 2 episodes of Talking with Demons. You will actually hear some of the music that I played in the intro. So Into the Fire is King Voodoo.
That's quite interesting you said that, Sid, because I was going to say that I noticed the change, because before you changed it for me, it was actually me who was doing the intro, and then you've changed it to you doing the intro, haven't you? And I noticed it. I meant to ask you, say to you about it, and I thought, oh, and it's one of the things that goes out your head. But
one of my and beginning of my Hot from the Ford show is it's a King Voodoo riff with a hammer thing beating over the top of it that Ian did. In fact, I used it in the show before the actual track came out, didn't I, Ian?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I use Drag Me to the Water for the intro to Into the Fire.
Yeah.
You're making me blush now, guys. Like, fucking hell, like, this is what I like.
Yeah, but if anybody's watching this, don't let them get big-headed, because it's Jamie that writes all the music and everything for King Voodoo. He just plays.
You don't get a shower scene for nothing,
Jamie, ignore him, mate. Jamie, ignore him. It's all right. We know the truth.
Anyway, guys, we're looking at the time here. We better wrap this up, or it's going to be a 3-hour show and nobody watches.
You don't want to keep me here very much longer, because I will keep you guys for 3 hours.
Well, let's end it in the normal Scouser and the Scot way. I always have one more question, which is always sound. So, guys, give us your links. Give us your links to your show. Give us your links to your podcasts and stuff like that, and let's get it out there to everyone.
All right. Well, you check us out on Facebook, Inner Demon Media /Inner Demon Records. That's our mother page. And then we have a sister page called Inner Demon Media. You can find that on Facebook as well. You can find us on YouTube, Inner Demon Records. You just punch it in the search bar, you'll find us there. You can find us on innerdemons.caster.fm. That's where we're airing our radio station, the Inner Demon Radios. That's where we air that at. We got just about a show every day, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty much going through. In 3 weeks' time, we'll have the new website should be up, which will be inademonmedia.com. And also, what we should say is, although we tend to share our own up-and-coming shows and bits and pieces on Inner Demon Media and Inner Demon Radio, we also have the Sacred Gates community, which is, as I said before, brings together paganism and music. And anybody's welcome to join that, and bands are welcome to come in there and post their own music. It doesn't have to be something that's on our show. We all welcome.
So what I'll do, guys, these two are absolute legends. They are family to the King Voodoo band, and John knows, as you said, they are really lovely guys. They are top blokes. Reach out to them, talk to them, ask them honestly. They'll give you some honest, good feedback. And what I'll do is I'll put the links down below. So click on the links, check them out, and support the local scene, like, because it's just perfect for these. So, John, over to you, mate.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you've enjoyed this as much as we've enjoyed hosting both Sid and Bob, then you know what to do. Until next time, hit that cowbell and subscribe.